Hello, in this relatively short video, we are going to just talk about a few topics. First is the list and array, and then I'm going to just quickly go over data structure and algorithms, what they are. So this is mostly about concepts, not so much about code or implementation. Okay, so we've learned this, we studied this a lot, so we know this is a built-in type, and it represents a collection of things. So collection of things. And for those of you, I think I said this when we talk about list just a little bit, is for those of you who know other languages such as C++ and Java, they do not have list as a built-in type. Now they do have list as a type, but it's usually provided through some sort of standard library. Now what they have in place of list is called array. Okay, so array is, again, it represents a collection of things, because that we need that as a building block to do anything kind of complicated. So it's kind of important to understand what array really is, because it's actually more fundamental than list. And as a matter of fact, list is built on top of array. So in a sense, array is more fundamental, but at the same time, because list is built on top of it, that's why list, especially the list in Python, is more versatile and more powerful than arrays. Now, list and array really share lots of similarities. The most important ones is that because it represents a number of things, so you always know how many things are in this in either a list or an array. Now the length is not built into C++, but that's not important. The important thing is whether you're a list or array, you should always know how many elements are in the list or the array. Okay, and then the second thing is that in both of them, you can read and write to any of the elements, right, using their index. And again, the index starts at 0, ends at length -1. So that's the most important features that either a list or an array offers. Now, they are different, and especially since array is the more fundamental type, array is actually more limiting. Now, it's more limiting, and all stem from the fact that an array actually lives in a contiguous block of memory. Now, that might not make a whole lot of sense just yet. 3B will cover this, but as a direct consequence of that, well, not quite. I strike that. I'll take that back. But what an array is as implemented in other languages is that it will store a fixed number of elements. So if the array, you allocate a space for, let's say, 10 integers, well, then it's going to only have space for 10 integers, and you cannot just easily add something to it or easily remove something from it. So that's one difference. And then in array, usually, actually, pretty much always, each element in an array must be of the same type. So like what I said, if you have an array of 10 integers, well, then the 10 elements are all integers. And that is, both of these are different from lists, because as you see in a list, you can append things at the end, you can remove things, and also in a list, you can mix and match values of different types. Well, then you kind of ask them, why don't we always use list? Well, array is good for certain things, and the most obvious, the biggest advantage array has is it's actually fast, just because it's simple. It's a lot simpler than list. So anyway, so this is just a short kind of an introduction to array. just because the fact that array is not a built-in type, so to Python, I'm not going to show any code or anything. I mean, we basically can use list as an array if you kind of adhere to these couple of these limiting factors. But anyway, so array is relatively simple. And that's actually why it's a built-in type for most languages. And well, list is definitely more elaborate, but again, it's more powerful and more versatile. I'm just gonna leave it to CS3B to be able to cover how a list and an array is implemented. Okay, so that's just again a quick kind of a short intro or summary to array and list. Now the next topic that I want to go over quickly is what is a data structure and what is the algorithm. And okay, algorithm, data structure. Okay, so lists and arrays, especially lists, are examples of what's called data structures. So according to Wikipedia, 3 characteristics of a data structure. So data structure is a collection of things, just like what we said, lists and arrays are. It's a collection of things. And then it's the relationship among them. So for example, for the array, the relationship among all the data value is they are the same type. Or for lists, is they can be different types. So that's one example of what they mean by relationships. And then this is the most important thing. And the function or the operation that can be applied to the data or each of the element in the list or array. So we've seen examples of functions or operations for lists, such as, well, we can read an element, we can write to an element, we can append at the end, we can delete, and that sort of thing. So that's what they mean by functions and operations. So that is really kind of the defining characteristic of one particular data structure versus the other, is what you can do with that data structure. Okay, what is an algorithm? Well, it's another big word in computer science, just like data structure. So algorithm is just a way to do things. We've written functions that, let's say, calculate the average of a list of numbers, find the largest numbers, etc., etc. So those are all examples of algorithms. So according to Wikipedia, algorithm is an unambiguous specification of how to solve problems. So like I said, it's basically how we do things. That's what an algorithm is. Okay, so together, data structure and algorithm, they're really powerful. They can do a lot of things. They can solve world hunger or not. Just kidding about that. But together they can. I wish it could solve world hunger. But other than that, I mean, they can do. They can solve an amazing range of problems, and they can have very meaningful impact on our lives. I mean, all the internet, the web services that we rely on nowadays so much in our lives, they really have the reason they work so well is mostly because the right data structure and brilliant algorithms are invented to solve problems. So we saw an example of data structure, lists and arrays, or mostly lists. We'll study another data structure called stack in a bit. And then for most of the algorithms that we study so far, they use loops, and that's called iteration or iterative way of solving problems. We will study another very powerful concept called recursion, which is another way of doing things repeatedly, but it's very elegant. And then we'll also study a couple algorithms specifically for sorting and searching in collection of things. So, all right, so that's just kind of a preview of what's coming down the pipe. All right, that's the end of this video.